Jasbir, who's used to go to this church many moons ago, has actually been in slums in South Africa and Brazil. Favelas, they're called in Brazil, is that right?
Yeah. Well, they're very, I think slums around the world are very different, and I was, a couple of years ago I went to Brazil, and we were in the northeastern area, in the really poor areas, and you hear about slums and you kind of, you get an impression from what you hear, but when you're actually there, it's, I think it's often it's really hard hitting. When I went to the favelas, they're called in Brazil, we basically, a lot of the kids and a lot of the families lived near a rubbish dump, and so the slums were built around this big rubbish dump, and they scavenged what they could off of the rubbish dump to survive. So it was really difficult for them to live, but then also those who were okay, who had sort of, who made something out of what they scavenged, even then their shacks and their houses were it was really dangerous. So you never knew whether you were going to come back to your house once you'd left it, if you went off for the day and things like that. So I think one of the things that really got to me was, I see you guys have been going a long way to get water and things like that. Well, when we actually stayed with some families who went to the church in the favela that we were associated with, and we were allowed to have a quick shower, and I didn't realise what a big deal this was to the people. And I swear I had a 1 minute shower. I was so quick, but I ran them out of water. So it was a real shock for me to actually to have done that, to have completely, just something that I took so for granted. I thought, oh yeah, quick, they're cold showers. There was nothing, nothing warm about it. But I thought, oh, it'll be fine, just have a quick shower, because obviously it's so hot and everything. And then I ran them out of water. So it's pretty much one of the hardest things. You think that everything that you take so much for granted is such a big deal for a lot of people. And I was in Durban with Slum Survivor a couple of months ago, and the townships there were very different to Brazil, but similar sort of circumstances, but everyone's sort of grouped together and you don't really have any choice about where you live. And I think that was one thing that people were, they're working so hard to get out of the townships, but then they haven't really got anywhere else to go. So it's quite a difficult situation to see, but then what the churches are doing in each little place, you just keep praying, because everywhere I went, it was so obvious that God was doing so many different things in different places. So I'd say, yeah, definitely keep praying and keep thinking about what other people live like, because it is very shocking when you're face to face with it, but God does do amazing things. So I'd say keep praying.
Thank you. And anybody have any questions? I've got one to start us off anyway, so the others can think. What was actually the food like? Did you find it edible or tasty?
Which, in South Africa or in Brazil?
Brazil first.
Okay, Brazil, I lost about 1.5 stones while I was out there, because they have this, they have different staple foods. I mean, there was rice, but it was all random foods that I could, it's very difficult to stomach when you haven't, there's a lot of beans and things like that which are okay, but they have not sweet potatoes, but yams and lots of different staple foods that I really wasn't used to, so I found it quite difficult. And obviously not the same kind of hygiene that you're used to, so.
Did you find that people sort of begged and stuff there? Because when I was in Morocco, people would beg there, whereas in Madagascar when I was there, people just wouldn't, people wouldn't really come up to you and ask for money and stuff like that.
Well, I'd say the massive thing was it was the kids. I think the parents sent the kids out to do that sort of thing. I never really saw any adults begging in Brazil. It was more the kids, because obviously they see white people, Western people, they've got money, so the parents send the kids out a lot of the time, and a lot of the kids we met would come and bring us flowers and wait for money and things like that. So it wasn't, I'd say more the children than the adults, which is quite hard. Oh, South Africa, the food was fine. But it was a lot of, I think it's a boy's diet as well, because it was a lot of meat and carbs. There was no fruit or veg. There's a lot of potato and rice, and then meat.
Okay.
And that was pretty much it.
What about sweets?
I'd say the sweets in South Africa in particular had a lot of colouring. All the things that are banned here, they're allowed over there. So you can get quite a lot of good things.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions?
Well, we felt a bit like that, even though when we were with the church in Brazil, it was okay because we were with the church and they have people coming and going all the time, so they were more used to it. But when, like for example, when we went round the rubbish dump and when we were in the favelas, you couldn't take photos or anything like that. It was so, you know, this is people's lives, and you didn't want to peer in and look at how it was. But I didn't really see. I think the tourists would see that. I think in Brazil and in South Africa as well, it's such a big contrast between rich and poor. You've got like the rubbish dump we were on was right next to a big city. Like there was everyone could see, you know, the tourists would definitely go to the nice beaches in the big city next door to the rubbish dump and the favelas. It's quite, you know, quite a big contrast, I think. Definitely. That's one thing I really noticed. Rich and poor is so like. Generosity and hospitality is just amazing, overwhelming. People who have nothing spend themselves so much more than us when we've got so much. And I think everywhere we went, people were so generous, and like the families we stayed in, like, they wanted us to, you know, use their water and have their food, and they wanted to make us feel welcome. And in South Africa as well, it was quite overwhelming when the families that we met there would they'd put on big, you know, barbecues and things like that, and they had no money, they had no, you know, food to do it, but they'd be so generous with what they had. So that was probably a big thing I got out of it, that, you know, we have more than we need, so we should be more hospitable, more generous, because we're quite guarded, I think, here. That's probably, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, well thank you very much for coming and sharing. That's perfect timing. That's great.
When I was in Brazil, yes. No, but when I was in South Africa, no. I think I was really, in Brazil I was really unprepared as to how it would affect my like health. Whereas in South Africa I knew what was coming, I was really prepared, and I think even though you're really careful with your hygiene, you can still, you know, you can't not eat what people give you sometimes, so because you'll offend them. But yeah. But it was one thing I was really scared of. But I think God really blessed me learning through. You do learn through things like that when you're not well, and when you realise, hang on, I can just rely on God here, and to get through. So I learned from it, definitely.
That's cool.
How long were you in South Africa?
Brazil was 3 weeks and South Africa was 2, so it really wasn't long.
Yeah.
Really wasn't long. It's like a taster of both.
Yeah.
And when it was quite, you want to stay longer. Like I didn't want to come back, in the sense that it was such a short time that you feel like, well, it's just a little bit of it. There's so much to do. But if anyone ever feels like they want to go away and go and serve God in a different place, you should just go for it, because not many people do, and it's just everything, you know, you grow a lot, you change a lot, and God shows you more of His world. So I think no matter how long you go for.
Great.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's wonderful.
No problem.